The sharp morning light pierced through the curtains, casting long shadows across the luxurious hotel suite. Jason Ford, CEO of a powerful tech company, groggily opened his eyes. His head pounded with the remnants of the wild night, and as his blurry vision cleared, he found himself alone in bed. He sat up quickly, his mind racing as he tried to recall the events of the previous evening. Last night had been a blur of alcohol, excitement, and the alluring woman who had captivated him from the moment they locked eyes at the upscale gala. Her name, Sarah, seemed so familiar, but the details eluded him. They had shared a passionate connection, a chemistry that neither could ignore. But what shocked him the most was that the night had escalated far beyond what he usually indulged in. He had never acted on impulse like that before. "Sarah," Jason muttered to himself as he stood looking for his phone. He quickly texted his assistant, "Set up the meeting for 10 a.m., don't forget." His eyes fell on his clothes, strewn across the room, and then they stopped, suddenly catching a glimpse of something on the nightstand. A small, elegant necklace lay there, and as he picked it up, his heart skipped a beat. It was a family heirloom, a necklace he'd seen before. It belonged to his mother, a gift passed down from generation to generation. He stared at it in disbelief. How had Sarah ended up with it? The necklace had been locked in the family vault for years, a piece of jewelry he had only ever seen his mother wear. Confused, Jason rubbed his temples, attempting to calm the storm of thoughts in his head. He couldn't help but feel there was more to this story than what met the eye. He had to see Sarah again. He had to know. Months later, just when Sarah thought she was starting to figure out her life, an unexpected event shook her to the core. A letter arrived at her doorstep one afternoon, an envelope with the unmistakable logo of a prestigious art gallery. Her hands trembled as she opened it, her heart racing with anticipation. Inside, she found an invitation to showcase her work at the gallery's upcoming exhibition. Her eyes scanned the letter multiple times to make sure she wasn't imagining it. Her first art exhibit, an opportunity she never dreamed of. Sarah stared at the letter, a rush of emotions flooding over her. She hadn't expected this. She had barely even finished her first few paintings, let alone considered them worthy of such a big stage. She felt a sense of disbelief mixed with excitement and fear. When she shared the news with Jason, he was elated. "This is huge, Sarah. You've worked so hard and you deserve this opportunity." "But what if I fail?" she questioned, her voice tinged with anxiety. "What if people don't like my work?" Jason placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Failure is just part of the journey, and I'm here no matter what. We'll do this together." The opening night of Sarah's first art exhibit was a success beyond her wildest dreams. People admired her work, and many were deeply moved by the stories behind the paintings. Sarah found herself talking to strangers, explaining the emotions and experiences that inspired her creations. She felt a sense of pride and connection to her art that was more profound than anything she had ever experienced. Jason stood beside her the entire time, his pride evident in the way he watched her interact with the guests. He knew how far she had come, how far both of them had come since they first met. "Look at you," Jason said, his voice filled with admiration. "You did it, Sarah. You're doing what you love." Sarah smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you, Jason. You've believed in me from the start. You gave me the courage to take the leap." It was in that moment that Sarah realized just how much she had changed. She was no longer the woman who felt lost and abandoned by her past. She was a woman who had found herself, not only through her art but also through the love and support of her brother. As the night went on, Sarah noticed something else. The people who admired her art were not just strangers. They were people who saw her, who understood her, and who appreciated the raw emotion behind her work. For the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged. As the years passed, Jason and Sarah's relationship continued to thrive. They grew closer with every milestone: Sarah's successful art career, Jason's growing philanthropic efforts, and their shared dedication to supporting one another through life's ups and downs. One afternoon, after another successful art show, Sarah invited Jason to her studio. It was filled with colors, brushes, and unfinished canvases that told the story of her journey. She smiled at him as he walked in, and without a word she handed him a painting, a portrait of the two of them. Jason was taken aback, his breath catching in his throat as he stared at the image. It wasn't just a painting. It was a symbol of everything they had gone through together, everything they had fought for, and everything they had achieved. Jason spent the rest of the morning trying to track Sarah down, but it wasn't until late afternoon that he received a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Meet me at the coffee shop in the park." The message sent a chill down his spine. His gut told him this was more than just a random hookup. Something was off, and he couldn't shake the feeling. When he arrived at the coffee shop, he spotted Sarah sitting alone at a table near the window. She looked like she hadn't slept at all, her eyes were red, and she seemed nervous. As Jason approached, she looked up, her face pale. "Jason, we need to talk," Sarah said, her voice shaky. "About what? What happened last night?" Jason replied, taking a seat across from her. The moment their eyes met, he couldn't help but feel an unspoken connection, one that ran deeper than mere attraction. Sarah's lips trembled. "It's not what you think, Jason. I've been looking for you for a long time, and what happened last night? It's not just a coincidence. We didn't just meet by chance." Jason's brow furrowed. "What do you mean by that?" His mind raced, trying to piece together the puzzle, but nothing made sense. Sarah leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're my brother." Jason froze. He stared at her, the shock of her words crashing over him like a wave. "What?" he gasped, his mind unable to process the information. "I know this sounds impossible, but it's the truth. I'm your sister, Sarah Ford." Jason's mind spun. He looked around the coffee shop as if the walls would offer an explanation. But there was nothing, just the silent murmurs of people around them, unaware of the revelation that was unfolding. I don't understand," Jason stammered. "I've never heard of you. How is this even possible?" Sarah's hands trembled as she pulled out a small photo from her bag and slid it across the table to him. It was a picture of a young girl, maybe 6 years old, standing beside a woman who looked familiar, his mother. It was a family photo Jason had never seen before. The woman in the picture was holding a baby, his sister. Sarah's voice softened. "I was adopted, your mother. She was my birth mother, but she gave me up when I was a baby. I've been searching for you for years. Last night was. I don't know. I didn't know it was you. I didn't know you were Jason Ford, the man I've been looking for." Jason's breath caught in his throat. His mind raced as the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. The necklace, the connection he felt with her, it all made sense now. "Sarah," he whispered, his voice filled with disbelief and awe. "I had no idea. I'm so sorry." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. "I never meant for this to happen, Jason. But when I saw you at that gala, I felt something that made me feel like I had to reach out. I had no idea that we'd end up, but now I don't know what to do." Jason reached across the table and gently took her hand, his own shaking. "We'll figure this out, okay? We'll figure it out together." Days passed, and Jason and Sarah spent more time together, gradually building a bond. Jason had always felt like something was missing in his life. He had everything money could buy, but a void remained. Now, with Sarah in his life, that emptiness began to fill. The discovery of their sibling connection was surreal, but as the days went on, Jason felt more and more at peace. It wasn't just the shock of finding his sister after all these years. It was the deep sense of love and connection he'd never experienced before. One evening, as they sat together in Jason's penthouse, Sarah spoke again. "I know we've only just begun to get to know each other, but I'm so grateful for everything, just everything." Jason looked at her, his heart full. "I never expected this, But I'm glad you found me, Sarah. I don't know what the future holds, but we'll make it work. As the days turned into weeks, Jason and Sarah grew closer. The initial shock of their sibling connection slowly began to fade, replaced by a genuine understanding and bond that neither of them had expected. Jason's world, which had once felt so lonely despite all the success he had achieved, was now filled with warmth and hope. Sarah brought something into his life that he never knew he needed: family. One evening, Sarah invited Jason to a quiet dinner at her apartment, far removed from the bustling world of business and fame. She had prepared a simple meal, but it was filled with love and care, a stark contrast to the sterile luxury of his penthouse. They ate, laughed, and talked about their lives, their shared memories, and the dreams they now harbored for the future. "You know," Sarah said, her voice tinged with curiosity, "I've been thinking about our mother a lot lately. I always wanted to know what she was like, but all I have are a few stories and that one picture." Jason looked at her, his expression softening. He had never really talked about their mother before, and the thought of it stirred something deep within him. "Mom was complicated," he said quietly. "She was a woman who wanted the best for her family, but she had her own struggles. I guess she made some difficult choices, like giving you up." Sarah nodded slowly, understanding in her own way. "But I'm not angry at her. I wanted to know her. I wanted to know her so badly." Jason's heart ached for his sister. He could feel the weight of all the years Sarah had spent without her family. The loneliness, the longing, the wondering. He had been so fortunate to have the life he had, with all its flaws and complexities, but Sarah had spent years in a search for someone to call her own. "I wish I could have been there for you," Jason said, his voice thick with emotion. "I wish I could have known you sooner." "It's okay," Sarah replied, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "You're here now, that's all that matters." As time went on, the connection between Jason and Sarah deepened. They spent weekends together, attended family gatherings, and shared stories of their childhoods, stories that for Sarah had always been missing from her life. Slowly, Jason began to open up about his own struggles, things he had kept buried beneath the surface of his busy, successful life. He learned more about Sarah's life as well, her challenges, her hopes, and the dreams she had nurtured despite the uncertainty that had surrounded her for so long. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of Jason's penthouse, overlooking the city skyline, Jason turned to Sarah, his face serious. "I want to do something for you. I know it's not much, but I want to help you find the answers you've been looking for. I want you to know everything about our mother, all of it." Sarah looked at him, her eyes wide. "What do you mean?" "I've already started looking into her past," Jason said. "I've contacted some of the people she knew, and I'm going to find out everything I can. I want to help you understand who she was, where she came from, and what her life was really like. We can do this together." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. "You really mean it? You'd do that for me?" A few weeks later, after much digging and countless phone calls, Jason uncovered the truth about their mother's past. It was a story of sacrifice, love, and heartbreak, one that Jason never could have imagined. Their mother, Lily Ford, had come from humble beginnings. She had fallen in love with a man from a different background, and their relationship had been met with resistance from both families. Lily had become pregnant at a young age, and when her relationship with the father fell apart, she had been left to raise a child on her own. But the circumstances had been too much for her, and at the time, giving Sarah up had seemed like the best decision for her daughter. Jason sat down with Sarah one evening to tell her what he had discovered. They were in the same cozy apartment, surrounded by the same warmth they had created in their new relationship. "I found out more about our mother," Jason began, his voice steady. "She had a hard life, Sarah. She didn't have the support she needed, and she did what she thought was best. But one thing is clear, she loved you. She loved you so much." Tears filled Sarah's eyes as she listened, her heart heavy with emotion. "I never knew any of that," she whispered. "I never knew she had to go through all of that alone." "I know," Jason replied softly. "But now you know the truth, and I promise we're going to honor her memory. We'll carry her legacy with us." With the truth now out in the open, Jason and Sarah found a new sense of peace. Sarah began to heal from the years of uncertainty, and Jason found that his life was richer and more meaningful with her in it. The bond they had forged was unbreakable, and they both knew that no matter what, they would always have each other. Together, they began to build a future filled with possibilities. They traveled, explored new ventures, and supported each other through every challenge. Their sibling relationship became the foundation of everything that mattered to them, and it was a relationship they would cherish for the rest of their lives. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony once again, Jason turned to Sarah, his heart full. "You know," he said with a smile, "I never knew what I was missing until I found you." Sarah smiled back, her eyes bright with happiness. "I know, Jason, I feel the same way." And as the sun set over the city, they knew that this was just the beginning of their new life together, a life that was built on love, family, and the bond that would never be broken. As the weeks turned into months, Jason and Sarah found themselves navigating life together in ways they never expected. They both realized how deeply the absence of family had affected them. Jason, with his career and endless pursuit of success, and Sarah, with her journey of longing for a connection to her roots. But as they began to carve out their own version of what family meant, their bond grew stronger. They became more than just siblings. They became each other's support system, confidant, and best friend. And with every passing day, Jason began to feel the missing piece of his life fill in. For Sarah, meeting Jason was a surreal moment, the beginning of healing and understanding. She no longer felt alone in the world. Sarah had always dreamt of becoming an artist, but the weight of her past had kept her from pursuing that dream. With Jason's encouragement, she decided to take a leap. She enrolled in art school, excited about the possibilities, yet unsure of what the future held. Jason supported her every step of the way, offering advice when needed and quietly cheering her on from the sidelines. "I don't know if I can do this," Sarah admitted one evening, overwhelmed by the prospect of starting something new at her age. "You can," Jason replied, his voice firm yet gentle. "I believe in you. You have something beautiful inside you. Don't let fear stop you from finding your true self." His words carried weight, and with his unwavering belief in her, Sarah felt the weight lift off her shoulders. She took her first steps into the world of art, embracing the challenges and uncertainties, but knowing she wasn't alone anymore. Jason would always be there,